Okay, one sec. So, good evening. We had a discussion last week in association with Aruba, where we discussed how data is exploding at the edge, how networks that carry this data are siloed, and how technology can unify the management of all these networks and give data analysts and innovators access to necessary data in a seamless and secure way. Today, we are going to discuss another aspect of networking, and that's the growing move away from fixed function hardware to software-defined networking. And we'll be talking in the specific context of software-defined WAN or wide area network. Today, as businesses demand greater agility, efficiency, and reduction in cost, SD-WAN is becoming a critical technology. So welcome to this edition of Times Techies Friday Plus Plus. I'm Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate this discussion, which we are doing in association with Aruba and Ingram Micro. Aruba is a networking company and part of HP Enterprise. Ingram Micro is one of the largest technology distribution companies in the world. And today we have with us four seasoned professionals. We have with us Shankarsan Banerjee. Shankarsan is the Chief Information Officer of RBL Bank. He has been with the bank since 2018. As the CIO, he has been responsible for spearheading the IT function, strategies, and designing the digital roadmap for the bank. Prior to joining RBL, Shankarsan was CTO of the National Stock Exchange for over 3 years, where he was responsible for leading digital transformation and cutting-edge technologies like AI and blockchain. Shankarsan has over 25 years of experience, including in companies like IBM, Mphasis, and Accenture. Welcome, Shankarsan.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. We have Mahesh Kumar Menon. We had Mahesh on this platform last week too. Mahesh is manager for systems engineering at Aruba. He has over 20 years of experience in customer-facing technical roles across enterprise and telecom verticals in India and abroad. He has been with Aruba for almost 4 years now. Prior to that, he was with Radisys Corporation, and before that with the data center networking business of HP Enterprise. Mahesh is an open standards networking evangelist and a blockchain follower. Welcome, Mahesh.
Thank you, Sujit.
We have Navdeep Narula. Navdeep too has been on this platform before. He is the Executive Director for Mobility and at Ingram Micro India. He holds P&L responsibility for a business size of close to $2 billion per annum. He has more than 25 years of experience. Before moving to Ingram Micro in 2013, he was Vice President at Reliance Digital Retail. Prior to that, he spent 7 years at Hewlett-Packard India handling national assignments. Welcome, Navdeep.
Thank you, Shilpa. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And we have with us Shekhar Chauhan. Shekhar is Sd-Wan Solutions Architect HP Aruba India. He's a solution architect at Aruba Edge Connect Sd-Wan for the North and East India regions. He has over a decade of experience in IT networking, delivering scalable, innovative, and cutting-edge networking solutions for customers. He has a special interest in software-defined networking and helping customers in their digital transformation journeys. Welcome, Shekhar.
Thank you. Thank you, Shilpa.
Thank you. Those of you who viewing this can send in questions through the comment section. Sujit and I will put them to Shankarsan, Mahesh, Navdeep, and Shekhar. Let me start with you, Mahesh. We are now suddenly hearing a lot about software-defined networking, software-defined WAN. What were some of the problems with the traditional fixed function hardware?
Yeah, thanks, Shilpa, for the question. Yeah, so like we were discussing, software defined is a keyword of networking industry today, right? Primarily what it means is you are taking the intelligence out of your hardware, or we are relying less on the hardware to do the networking or the traffic steering functionality, and move that intelligence into an external component which can then oversee the entire network as at a higher level, and then make very informed decisions across the network, right? When it comes to key aspect or key topic of today, the software defined wide area network. So why it is important? The primary reason is you just mentioned that customers are going through digital transformation, right? They are all customers, I would know, they are all considering the consumption of their solutions or their applications either on premises, cloud, SaaS, and even enabling their users to work from anywhere, right? That is the key aspect, or I would say that part of the digital transformation has really accelerated after the pandemic hit us, right? We really, or any CIO today wants the networks to be so agile so that the applications can be consumed anywhere, and applications can be consumed by their employees sitting anywhere, as well as they can be uh, hosted anywhere. It need not be in their premises, on-premise data center like how it was. So if we talk about the traditional wide area network, it was designed at a time when this traditional data centers or traditional application access was the real use case, right? They were not really designed to drive this uh, change in the traffic patterns. So it can be initiated anywhere, and it will be fetching the resources from anywhere. So the traditional networks were never designed for such a dynamic traffic patterns, right? That is what is changing. And then also one more thing I just want to mention, traditional routing was mainly based on IP addressing, which is more from a, I would say, networking terminology. But nobody really cares what IP addresses devices or applications carry. They really want the business side of it. They want to know, they want to ensure that the network delivers the right applications to the right users through the wide area network, right? So these agility, these flexibility is what is expected from today's wide area network, and that is what customers are expecting, and that is where we consider a real WAN transformation is also should be associated along with the digital transformation journey taken by any customer. Digital transformation is not just migrating their applications to cloud or to SaaS, but it should also be associated along with a WAN transformation that is led by software-defined wide area network.
So SD-WAN should be an integral part of digital
Absolutely.
transformation journey. Shankarsan, tell us, I mean, how do you do all this in RBL Bank? What has been your experience?
So we have not yet moved to SD-WAN, primarily because of a skills issue. It's hard to get people who understand how to design an SD-WAN system.
Really?
Yeah, it's very hard. We did in NSE, we bought the equipment and essentially just used the same old standard WAN with a little bit of management rather than redesigning it for SD-WAN. See, SD-WAN, the big difference is, let's say you have 500 applications running on 1000 servers and some. SD-WAN allows you to treat each application's components as if it was the sole thing running on the network, regardless of how far away or close they are. Makes management really simple, makes much more efficient use of bandwidth, makes much better, security, inspectability, observability. But to get there requires a certain amount of expertise. It is not, it's not trivial. And especially we bought Cisco's SD-WAN. That time Cisco was a little bit closed off. They didn't entirely implement SD-WAN all the way. This was some years ago. In RBL, similarly, we evaluated the technologies and we found the technologies to be quite mature, but we could not really get the skills. We asked partners and we weren't entirely confident. So at the moment, plus our setup is a lot smaller than most other banks. So at the moment, we live with traditional WAN with IP addresses and ports and all that. And it's a pain, it's a headache. But we don't want to make it worse by getting into a complex technology that we can't run.
Skills, what is the problem? I thought India was a place with all the skills.
Yes, but they all work for US customers.
Shankar, is it also to do with maybe the fact that your the SaaS and cloud migration is still ongoing? Could that be a reason why you're not sort of?
That is also, so we issued an RFP for SD-WAN, including SD-WAN, network revamp, 2 years ago. And then the pandemic came. So we deferred it, saying, this is too large a change for us to do entirely from remote. Then this year again, we started issuing the RFP again. But yes, our cloud movement, our SaaS movement, our workforce work from home movement took priority, and other things were indeed pushed aside.
Oh, NSE's equipment and all are still lying there like that, is it? I mean,
no, NSE, this was 5 years ago. NSE has since progressed considerably more on the SD-WAN journey. But when we bought it for 1.5 years, it just lay there. We had the capability, but not the I mean, we had the technology, but not the capability.
Sujit, I asked this question to Shankar because I thought, this is the toughest sector, the banking and finance sector probably has the lowest, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mahesh, the lowest penetration of SD-WAN. So, we have the right.
Really?
I would think
Yeah,
so. Absolutely.
So one of the sectors which wide area network is key to their business is banking, I would say, right? And like sir said, 5 years back, yeah, it would have been the initial phase of SD-WAN. And within last 5 years, SD-WAN also as a technology has really matured. And one of the things I just want to, I'm not saying I'm differing, but one of the things which really benefits a customer to run the network, it becomes much easier once they migrate to SD-WAN. Maybe the migration would have been the challenge there, but once they migrate to a software-defined wide area network, then skill set comparatively, what I'm trying to say is when we were running wide area network, we used to run it like sir said, it is used to be a manual process, command line interfaces, people with expertise on that CLIs were required. But moment we move to a software-defined architecture in any sector, it's a LAN or data center or wide area network, we are moving away from that command line interfaces and all. We are raising the bar up to the higher level. So it will be a very easy to manage a GUI-based infrastructure. Many of the technical terminologies will be, I would say, camouflaged behind this GUI. So really, people who manages it can easily manage using GUI. And then many of the things which you are considered to be complex of configuring the devices are all done at the back side of it. So running it, operating it, visualizing the network, all those becomes much easier. Maybe once we migrate to SD-WAN.
So what are the problems that you have now with traditional WAN?
It's the transformation. So in the traditional WAN, there are two large problems. One is the observability of traditional WAN is actually quite low. You can only see point to the next point. So an application that sits in our data center has some part on cloud and some part in a customer's device. To trace a call from one set to the other is quite a headache. We don't know which leg it went through. We have to do leg by leg diagnosis, and sometimes these go through 20 legs. The second is that it is a little bit rigid. It's been predefined. So if load pattern changes, somebody has to manually go and redefine that load pattern. And it can lead to significant outages. Many years ago, we had a 1G box in our network inline. And as our loads grew, we kept allocating other resources to other things. A 1G box got forgotten. And suddenly it led to a choke, which caused us bank-wide outage. The entire network just choked up. Again, those things are very difficult to see in a traditional network. In an SD-WAN, it is rather easier to see it. Because in SD-WAN, the physical device is actually not, the routing of the physical device is not being used. There is a software that virtualizes that and creates a route. So actually, what looks like one road may be roads from 20 different devices.
Absolutely.
These monitoring those different legs that you mentioned earlier, I mean, why do you need to monitor those?
Because things go wrong. Telecom cables fail, connections fail, especially on WAN. We have a fair amount of failure from the telcos. And sometimes road digging causes multiple telcos to go off at one shot. It happens quite frequently.
Okay.
Yeah, Sujit, one of the things I just want to add, what terminology we use technically, we normally say underlay and overlay, which is very, very frequently used now in networking. So like sir said, it is underlay is what the real physical links are, which are given by service providers, which have multiple service providers included, multiple type of links there. It can be 4G, it can be MPLS, it can be lease lines, it can be broadband. There are a lot of these, we call them as underlay or the real physical links. But what SD-WAN does is actually take this. For example, if I take one of the bank branches, if I get one MPLS link and one broadband link, ideally what we do or what SD-WAN does is we combine this or we do something called bonding, link bonding we do. That means ideally what that branch has to achieve. Branch has to ensure that all the if it's a bank, they have to ensure that it is reaching to the core banking application, which will be residing in the data center or in the disaster recovery center, right? So then what is the path to reach there? Now at the branch we have two paths. One is a MPLS. Why MPLS typically is taken? Because it is much reliable. It is controllable. Again, in financial sector, many times they rely or they have heavy dependency on security. They think because MPLS is secure. But also what we are seeing is Sd-Wan is making during this transformation. One of the things Sd-Wan can provide is whatever control, security, and reliability is provided by the MPLS link can also be achieved from an internet link, right? So overall, maybe at a branch level, you can bring down the cost of WAN links. Secondly, because like the technologies like tunnel bonding, we will take both the links and combine them. Like if I have 1 Mbps of MPLS and 1 Mbps of internet link, I will make it as a 2 Mbps of link going to my data center at any point in time. And traffic will be properly load shared, traffic will be steered. Again, one thing sir was mentioning, earlier traditional network devices were not giving that visibility into application. Now because these devices are much intelligent, they can give visibility into the application. The moment you know application one is CBS core banking, application two is maybe they are fetching some information from the file server, maybe third application people are going to internet for some personal access. So if we know what exactly are the applications, now we know, okay, which link can provide me the best SLA at that point in time, right? And then properly share the traffic between the links and then achieve that required network connectivity for that end user.
Okay, lots of advantages you're saying.
Right.
Navdeep, so tell us, what are the trends that you are seeing? Shankar Sen is saying we have a skill talent. You need to provide him some comfort. He says,
yeah, I think whatever I would have said is, I think it's already been said by mostly by Mahesh. I think let me focus more on the commercial aspect. I think this is I think the industry has been well covered by Mahesh on the. So I mean, to Shankar or I think IT budgets are not growing, but the demand for WAN bandwidth sort of keeps going through the roof as we use more and more next gen bandwidth hungry applications. We put huge strain on on traditional legacy WANs, and these are mostly MPLS networks comprised of old technologies. So I think also the digital transformation is the biggest influence, and cloud and mobile computing are creating entirely different traffic patterns. So I think that this world, you would, as you mentioned also, you require higher IT agility and higher network agility. SD-WAN solutions clearly end up, in a large saving on the total cost of ownership, also, acquisition cost, maintenance cost, or offer great flexibility. I think as I was also mentioned that each sector of the industry is in a different stage of adoption. It's a question of time. I'm hoping that, the banking finance sector also would sort of, there are clearly technological apprehensions. Just back to my point, commercially, it's a very, very attractive story.
which industries are seeing the maximum adoption?
I would say it's the manufacturing sector.
Yeah, and why?
Over there, also the clearly the born in cloud space, which is which is directly sort of correlated to the SD-WAN adoption. So really speaking, these wherever you see higher higher embracement of the cloud and SaaS, clearly it's a strong case for SD-WAN adoption as well. So that's where that's the clear interlink that you can look at.
And do you see a good adoption rate, or what kind of growth rates are you seeing?
Oh, I think that our question will be best answered by Mahesh. But I have Industry-wide, my estimation is that probably 70% there's an enterprise 30 to 40% penetration in the overall enterprise space on the SD-WAN. That's what we, and of course, different sectors having a different penetration sort of ratio.
Okay, okay. Shekhar, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so a couple of points, for what we were just discussing, that one thing that came up about the skill set, the skill set requirement. So in my opinion, it's actually the opposite, right? With due respect, the reason why I say this is that first of all, it creates this this sense that the software defined networking or software defined WAN, this is a cutting edge technology, latest technology. Yes, it is, but all the complex things are being done by the engineering team in the backend. For the user, for the IT admin, what he sees a GUI, graphical user interface, wherein the most complex configurations that are used to be done on the WAN environment related to quality of service, preserving bandwidth for critical applications, making sure that low priority applications does not cause the choke in the WAN bandwidth and the congestion. So all these configurations are just done by a few clicks, from the management platform, right? So it is just that, and as Mahesh, rightly said, one of the biggest challenge that we see, when we are talking to the customers, that they are very afraid on how the migration is going to happen from the traditional WAN to the SD-WAN, because WAN is the most critical aspect of any enterprise. If WAN breaks, everything is going to break. That is where due diligence has to be paid, by the system integrator, by the vendor, to understand the existing architecture and how it can be integrated. So what we have seen in the field is that if you do it right, if you have good guidance, then it is very easy to be migrated, and the migration can happen in a matter of months for hundreds and thousands of sites, right? Because the technology that we have in SD-WAN, which we can also talk about, would be like zero touch provisioning, where it not much configuration needs to be done on the device itself before bringing up a particular site. So using all these technologies, all these software defined features, like for an IT user, it is very easy, right? So all the complexity, I'm just trying to put this point, that all the complexity is done by in the backend. The only thing with SD-WAN is that SD-WAN is a very ambiguous term, right? So, and any solution can become an SD-WAN. Like me as a if someone is a college intern, he can create a software, call it as an SD-WAN. But then there are some aspects that should be covered, right? And that's where we look at the maturity of the product, because it is not a standard solution; it is a proprietary solution. Every OEM would, or every vendor would, have a different way of implementing the software-defined networking.
Does it require removing existing hardware, changing the hardware, or can you do it on top of the existing hardware?
It depends on a lot of things. Now, when we are talking about SD-WAN, now SD-WAN is going to give you that ability that, even on white boxes, even on UCPEs, you can deploy, different VMs, different vendor solutions. But the traditional routing, and that is also one of the biggest challenge with the traditional routing, right? The traditional routing would make you vendor locked in, right? So you would have to be that vendor, for as long as you're gonna run that WAN network.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah. Mahesh, I just wanted to ask you, is SD-WAN just an added cost, or, if you can give us some color on what's the return on investment that it provides?
Yeah. So some of the aspects we just touched upon. So I would say overall, there are many benefits, some of them which we touched upon. One of the major thing which adds cost to wide area network is the link itself, right? So if you take an organization or a bank having, say, 500 branches, you can easily say they will have 2 links per branch, because they cannot afford a single link, because if the branch link fails, they will not have access to the core banking and that branch will be isolated. So to ensure that every location will have dual links, so you have around 500 branch enterprise will have 1,000 WAN links. And traditionally, these WAN links were sometime back it was leased lines, then it got migrated to MPLS, but then again, they are all expensive links. One of the things SD-WAN can provide, like I earlier mentioned, we can have a WAN migration, because SD-WAN, with the capabilities SD-WAN has, it can provide that same level of security, same level of control, same level of reliability, right, at a lower cost when adopting maybe a internet-based link at the branch offices. So you can have that bandwidth flexibility. Then in India, we are seeing a wider adoption of 4G, and maybe in near future we are moving to 5G. So these kind of newer technologies can also be integrated to the wide area network link types. So it can be a remote user, it can be a remote location. You can adopt the upcoming advanced technologies for the WAN links. That is one, the bandwidth or the link flexibility, which can bring direct benefit to the overall investment which customer makes. Another thing is, which we in Aruba, we believe that SD-WAN cannot be a standalone solution, but it also should have some good WAN optimization solutions, because many times what we are seeing, which some Shekhar touched upon, right? Maybe your non-critical applications is choking your critical application. So if it is a retail store, they want to access their ERP solution, which is there in their head office or in the data center. But if somebody is browsing some website at the same time using the internet link, then you are going to it is going to affect your business traffic, right? So you need to really look into that application. Second, you need to ensure that the bandwidth optimization happens, that you do not send the repetitive data. For example, in a distributed offices, we are seeing they use wide area network not just for their business application, but to run the network. For example, antivirus updates, right, or patch updates, because they have say 10 PCs in every branch, and those 10 PCs have to be updated. Operating system need to be updated, or antivirus need to be updated regularly. These are very large traffic which actually consumes WAN bandwidth. So we need to ensure that these are reduced to the minimum. It should not be sending repetitive data every time. It should do some caching, it should do some compression. Those kind of WAN optimization technology should be there to ensure that WAN bandwidth is whatever money is spent on WAN bandwidth, it is really utilized for 90% or 80% is utilized for the business purpose only. Then other, I cannot put real money to it, but there are a lot many advantages. One of the main things is it can add new locations very rapidly, because everything is now managed from a central location, right? Now you are at a 500 branch customer, you want to add another 50 branches. It is very easy, right, to add branches, because you have already done your setup right at the center. You just keep plugging in new branches to the setup. You don't have large configuration. You don't need expertise to add those locations. Then any new application comes in, because application, like earlier I mentioned, application is all now visible to the network. Earlier, applications were never visible to the network. Now applications are visible to the network. You add a new application, you know what network parameters or network requirements are there for that application. Then you push that application to all the sites. Network will adjust itself to accommodate that application to run on the wide area network, right? So you can add applications very, very fast. Then with the load balancing, with the proper path steering, you are really reducing the time, network downtime, right? You are always using two, but earlier that were, first of all, they were not optimally used. Now it is optimally used. Along with that, it is load balanced properly. If one of the links fail also, you really do not see an impact on the network connectivity, right? So all these are, I would say, direct benefits or indirect benefits of going for SD-WAN. So overall, I can say customer, in a long run, customer is really going to benefit from SD-WAN.
Shankar-san, you agree on all of these advantages? I mean, if there are so many advantages, why is the financial services industry been a little slow on this? Is it only the skills issue?
So skills is one big issue because what happens is, once it's set up, yes, it runs very smoothly, but it's very hard to set up initially. And it's very hard to remap a physical network with many different generations of networking equipment to an SD-WAN capable network. Some of us have really old routers, and those are not capable of SD-WAN. Those tend to become islands, or you have to replace all those devices as well. That planning and back-end engineering exercise is a really complex exercise. Second, we have already laid out these two links and all that. Like most of us now have branches with two links already. So we're not going to save that much money. And the third is that, traditionally banks have been very conservative. Our policies are laid a particular way. Our skills are laid out a particular way. We have all these extreme port restriction policies. In SD-WAN,
what restriction is that?
Port restriction. So, you have 20 hops. Each hop, the port and the IP address are separately permissioned. So the CISO says, now that you have an SD-WAN, how can I do that? But actually, you're not supposed to do that anymore. It's a virtual isolation. You can't see the interim hops. And so those policies have to be rewritten. There's a lot of convincing to be done. And that is one big thing that holds us back. In terms of benefits, the two biggest benefits, the benefits are broadly correct. The two biggest ones, one, our load profiles are changing a lot. Branches, they used to have 64 kbps links because only the ATM used to run in real time. Everything else, branch is shut. Core banking requires very little bandwidth. Then now people in the branch also want want mail, want chat, want real-time applications. Most of our applications have now become real-time. And many of the applications are hosted either on our central data center or on the cloud. Nothing is hosted anymore at branch level. So demand for bandwidth has gone up. Branch sizes keep changing depending on the environment. And all these put together, there's a very large shift in demand profiles. So a branch that used to do 2 Mbps suddenly wants 16 Mbps. Then now, many places you don't have good second lines. The second provider is not reliable. We don't have that many telcos in India. So managing it, therefore, requires managing through multiple hops, VSAT, internet bandwidth, and combining them becomes quite complicated. That has become increasingly our biggest pain point, the combining of bandwidths. Because lease line ek baar lag gaya, MPLS lag gaya, you have a certain bandwidth. You can't suddenly make it double or triple. So then you go and get a local internet provider. But then you have two lines, and now you have to figure out which line, what traffic goes through. That doing it manually in a traditional network is quite complicated, prone to mistakes. So that has been a fairly big challenge for us, especially connecting up ATMs, which are even less manned than branches. The third challenge that we had is application visibility. What application traffic is going where? Increasingly, that is becoming our largest pain point, especially because that also keeps you prone to cyber attacks. Application visibility, man-in-the-middle attacks are all where a cyber criminal is targeting you. So these challenges are very elegantly solved by SD-WAN, but getting from here to there has proved to be quite an effort. And it is the back-end engineering where we don't get skills. Once it is set up, actually we need far fewer admin guys. We don't need Cisco certified engineers. But getting to that point has been the real challenge.
Okay, once you set it up, you're saying it's not a big deal. Your internal IT guys can manage it.
In NSE, we set up virtual networking for Gift City. Gift City was greenfield, so we didn't have all these problems. So all of NSE's virtual networking is run by two guys. One guy is the backup for the other. They run everything. They run the servers, which the servers are also virtual. They run the network, which is also virtual. They run the storage, which is also virtual. They don't really, and they do GUI stuff. If you want a network, you take an icon of one application, drag it to the other application, and the connection forms. There are rules to say this is an HTTPS connection, this, that, and the other. Which, as I said, doesn't require any special skill to run once set up correctly. But doing it in a non-green field has proved to be quite challenging.
Okay. Navdeep, why don't you respond to that? Massive complications for these older enterprises with lots of legacy technology and all that. Have you seen how do they overcome it?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Sujit?
No, I mean, what Shankarsan was talking about, the kind of challenges that a bank like them have. I mean, they have lots of legacy technology and all that. Already multiple lines set up, older hardware and all of that. So how do they switch? I mean, it seems to be a big challenge for him, even though he recognizes there are a lot of advantages.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing journey more than anything else, Sujit. And Shankar did admit to an extent that the banking, the finance industry is a lot more conservative, for all good reason too. I think it'll, and with the good people like Mahesh and Shekhar, us to help deploy the solution, and to this journey will take its own course. And I think over time that this migration, I'm quite sure, will be kind of completed. So I think this is a to my prediction, it's a question of time. That's how it is.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to add one thing here. Like Shankarsan sir said, existing network and migrating completely to SD-WAN. Yeah, of course, it cannot be done over a day. But what our solutions, what we provide is, we provide this interoperability till the time it completely migrates to SD-WAN. What it means is, maybe if I take 100 branches or 500 branches, out of that 100 is going SD-WAN way. So what we do, 100 branches moves to SD-WAN. Rest of the 400 branches still run the traditional network, but these two interoperate. These talk on the open standard routing protocols between them. When a branch which is connected to SD-WAN wants to talk to a branch which is connected to non-SD-WAN, we still enable those communications. So it is like Navdeep said, it is a journey. So we have to take in phases, and then
so it can be
finally,
done in phases, is what you're saying.
it has to. It can be done in phases, and we can move to this new infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, there's some questions coming in, Shilpa.
Yeah, there's this audience question from Sanjay Kumar Chauhan. How does SD-WAN is useful for OSPF protocol network where we have a dual link, but when an error comes in a link, the business continuity is disrupted and it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to converge network and then data center onto a secondary link? Is there any solutions within SD-WAN or any other solutions that's available?
Yeah, I can start it, but I will then hand over to Shekhar because he can give a more technical answer. But high level, what we do in our solution, like earlier I mentioned about link bonding, and then also we earlier or traditional network, we used to say that when it is blackout, we converge or we change. That means when you have two links, when one link fails, we go to the second link. But that is no more a possible solution, because you cannot keep the second link idle till the time the first link fails, right? It is an ideal investment for the customer. So we always look for something like this, what he asked, like brownout scenarios. Brownout means the link is still up, but it is not performing to the level it used to be performing, or it is not meeting the SLAs which it should be given, right? So there are many things which we do in our SD-WAN solution to address this. Shekhar, you can add some of those capabilities.
Yeah, so as Mahesh has rightly said, the context, it is the SD-WAN that we're talking about, and the good thing that SD-WAN brings in is that it takes away the complexity of the old routing protocols. Yes, you can still run those routing protocols, but then the convergence time of those routing protocols, the failover time is pretty high, as the viewer has rightly pointed out. And this is exactly one of the complex problem that SD-WAN is going to solve. Now, coming to what the context that Mahesh has already said. Now, again, as I said, that every OEM, every vendor would have their own innovative way to implement SD-WAN, because SD-WAN is not a standard technology; it is very proprietary, right? So the way we do at Aruba is that we do not use any synthetic IPSLA packets to measure the loss latency jitter, because it is not the efficient way. The reason why it is not the efficient way is that in 1 second you can send as many IPSLA probes. But with using the Aruba SD-WAN technology, what we basically do is we use the production traffic itself as a tool to measure the links bandwidth, loss, latency, jitter, and everything, right? So the sample size is quite huge, and then we can put the SLAs that when this link has this much of loss or latency or failover, let's not use that link. On top of that, the feature that SD-WAN brings in is the forward error correction feature. With using forward error correction, at one hand, we are doing performance-based routing by measuring the WAN links characteristics like loss, latency, and jitter, and at the same time, we are trying to fix that as well. How we are fixing it? We are fixing, using parity packets like forward error correction packets. Like I can go on and on, but in nutshell, yes, SD-WAN can take care of the problem that the user has mentioned.
Okay. Navdeep, wanted to ask you, what kind of strategies or infrastructure does Ingram Micro deploy for its channel partners to enable them on the SD-WAN story?
Yeah, thanks, Sujit. So, Sujit, I would say that we do our bit in the value chain, and we try to support our customers and our partners. A few of the enablements I'll just talk about, not so much to sort of talk about Ingram Micro, but these are more like the needs of the ecosystem, and this is what we have identified and we have worked on, invested in. Clearly, so one of those, the first one being, that the trends that we foresee today. One thing is clear in terms of a dynamic shift is the as a service approach, by the customers, or the consumption model or the annuity model, which is like really becoming all pervasive. And today, even network as a service is something that it's becoming extremely popular. We work with Aruba, and also with our own Ingram Micro Financial Services to provide this consumption model to our customers and partners.
So how does that work? That you do it entirely for them, and they pay as you go, is it?
That's right. That's right. It is again, it's a OPEX to CapEx to OPEX conversion, which we do on behalf of our principal partners like Aruba. The solution, it's called Network as a Service. That is routed through our partners to our customers, and it's the solution is provided, but the conversion of the acquisition into a service is done by us. So it could be through our own financial services as well. So this is clearly the trend going forward, where this is something that, people identify with a lot across industries. So that's something we do. Our channel partners and customers look for a one-stop solution, one-stop shop, where, a partner like us is not just the provider, but also a facilitator. So we also, through various, the entire stack of compute, storage, network, applications, cloud, we are able to sort of serve all the needs cutting across technologies, and, becoming a really an ecosystem provider. So that's a big value that, our partners look at. We have a very strong, to possibly assuage Shankarson's, apprehensions. There is there are a lot of networking specialists certified by Aruba, and, solution architect team that help in building the solution, and, provide that much needed tech expertise and comfort in the beginning. And, later we have a professional services organization, which is very well equipped with a comprehensive menu of services for our partner and customers to choose from as the need may be, which sort of helps in high comfort and seamless deployment. So these are just some infrastructure investment made by our organization to bring comfort and to enable the ecosystem for the SD-WAN, migration.
Okay. Shilpa, you're muted.
We have this question from, what is the role SD-WAN can play in scaling up a hybrid architecture model? This question to Mahesh.
Yeah, so see, one of the primary reason in the initial question itself, what we answered, the primary reason what WAN migration or WAN transformation is is achieving or is aiming at is to ensure a hybrid architectural model, right? It is customers are now free or flexible to choose how do they want to consume their applications. There is no stringent methods. What SD-WAN is enabling them is it gives that flexibility and openness for those customers to connect anywhere and consume applications wherever it is hosted. So it can be on premises, it can be cloud hosted, it can be SaaS provided, it can be accessed by a remote user using a VPN, it can be accessed by work from home users, right? Then from branch offices or anywhere they are when they are traveling, all those. So SD-WAN really enables that transformation for connectivity to achieve that digital transformation to ensure that customers can migrate to a hybrid architecture.
Okay. Shankar-san, 5G, do you see that impacting all of this? Shankar-san, you're muted.
See, 4G did already impact. A lot of our branches use 4G as the tertiary link and sometimes as the secondary link because it is fast enough to run a branch. 5G will make it quite possible to run even a large branch as a viable second connection. And India, depending on the spread of 5G, of course, India, the landline accessibility is quite a challenge in many areas. And partly because of things like road digging and so on, but also just that the cables haven't been made available. So in many cases, the only provider is BSNL. BSNL has its own procurement lead times. It may not be in your building. Whereas 5G is, once it's rolled out in a particular town, the coverage tends to be much bigger and much faster. So as we start putting up larger branches, as we start putting up much fancier ATMs, as we start putting up a lot of issuer devices, POS machines, POS devices. POS devices are IoT. They chew up bandwidth. And in many cases, they use today telephone lines, which is very suboptimal. Or they use individual chips, which are a nightmare to manage in connectivity terms. Not networking connectivity, but paying for each SIM card, that kind of connectivity. So those challenges will go away as you put larger networks on a 5G. So you can have one single, one Wi-Fi box with a 5G chip inside, and it will run all the POS machines of even a large department store. So those are the advantages that we're looking at, but it's some distance away because obviously 5G itself is a couple of years away.
Years away.
And then adoption at the ground will take its own time. Rollout, adoption, devices, all that will take its time. But it will change our life in ways that we did not think. Another fact today is that, yes, we are increasingly less branch-centric. For instance, mobile banking is more than 20% of all my banking. 20% of my customers use mobile as their primary or sole bank.
20%, huh?
Yeah, and it's increasing. I mean, there are brokerages, for instance, there are many brokerages where it is 60%. That mobile is their primary way to access the stock market.
Okay.
Now that brings all kinds of other connectivity challenges. Today, again, we are looking at it as individual point-to-point connections. And frankly, we don't have good visibility. Your particular mobile phone connected to my network is getting some error. We can't really help you actually. It goes through a long diagnostic procedure to isolate. Whereas in SD-WAN, we would be able to do things much, much easier.
Okay. Mahesh, 5G, are you preparing for that in any way?
Yeah, of course. So as you know, Aruba as a technology was born in wireless space, right? So we keep a track of all kinds of wireless technologies, or we call it as multi-RAN enterprise today. Any enterprise is a multi-RAN. So traditionally, we never use the radio access network as the terminology for enterprise wireless. But what Aruba is terminology we use internally is the multi-RAN enterprise. Primarily, customer can choose. Today we are talking about the 6th generation of wireless, like Wi-Fi 6. Then Wi-Fi 6E is coming, and there is already work started on Wi-Fi 7. So that is all going to be the connectivity for internal network. And then moment we go from 4G to 5G, what we may see more and more is the penetration comes down, right? Because today itself 4G signal reaching all corners of your building is very rare. So there is a challenge of getting that connectivity all the way within your internal building. So what we are seeing it is 5G will be more of a backhaul technology, and then Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, they become your access technology, and then your voice, your data, all those what you get from the 5G provider will transform completely to the wireless internal. So indoor will be more of wireless and external will be 5G. That is
So
what
Mahesh,
we are seeing.
Mahesh, where does really the satellite internet find its place? Very, I think you have to go further, not just within the premises, then outside, then maybe to, I guess,
Yeah.
very hard terrain. So it's very
Starlink.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
over to you. For you to comment, please. So, wait, what are you thinking about satellite internet becoming a reality very quickly?
Yeah, it is. Of course, then that is one more wireless technology which will provide the connectivity, right? Again, like I mentioned, 5G, 4G penetration is a challenge. Satellite may, I don't know, end of the day, bandwidth and applications have to run with that connectivity. Can they really provide it for, see, maybe a user, one single user accessing internet, maybe that is sufficient, but enterprises never settle for the connectivity. They settle on the SLAs, right? They need to ensure that application are given the required bandwidth and they can access it. Once it is scaled up to that level, yeah, maybe we will see that as a alternative.
Okay, there's a question here, Mahesh, and all of you. What are the cybersecurity implications of SD-WAN? How robust is it for enterprise use? It's a question from Shankara Rao.
Yeah, so initially I mentioned, right? So one of the concerns, many of the customers, again, one of our panelists from the banking industry, moment we are talking about BFSI or the banking and financial sector, security becomes very key. I'm not saying the other sectors are not, but they are very uh, uh, cynical or skeptical about moving to an internet-based backbone network and all. So, like I mentioned earlier, SD-WAN ensures that when you move from a leased line or an MPLS-based network to an internet-based network, we provide the similar kind of security control for the end user, so that migration will not be a challenge. So, how we are addressing security? So, security I can take that can be addressed in multiple levels, right? It cannot be talked only at one level. So first level, I would say the device itself or the equipment which we put in the location, right? So there are security capabilities which are there within the device. Some of them are firewalling capability, intrusion prevention capability. These are device centric capabilities which are like, we ensure that there is no unauthorized access comes from external to the internal. So those kind of protection features are available on the device itself. Then second part, one thing which Shankarsan sir touched upon earlier, like POS machines or IoT devices, right? So this IoT is going to be a very key factor here, because why we are targeting IoT, because they are very vulnerable. They do not have the same kind of patching or same kind of operating system updates which keep them up to date in the security uh, way of how the organization is having compliance. So IoT becomes a vulnerable part. So what we are doing is we ensure that when the device connects to the network itself, we ensure that we identify the device. We find out whether it is a authorized device to connect or not. And the same information, same thing is for device, also for the user. And traditionally, wide area network really do not have this data. They are more about the wide area network part, the routing and the IP forwarding. But what we are adding to the SD-WAN is the device visibility and device information and the user information. So now we are not just doing the security at the wide area network or device level, we are also taking the context information of the branch network or branch devices also. So now on the wide area network side, I can decide, okay, the device is a POS machine. It has to only connect to one of the servers in the data center. It should not be connected. If it behaves differently, if the POS machine is trying to access maybe a core banking server, for example, then I know that the behavior of the device is not correct. So we look into the behavior of the device. We can apply the policy then and there so that we can mitigate any risk created by any of these IoT or the device level threats. That is the second part. The third part is the WAN security itself. So we are taking the data from, especially if I'm talking about BFSI, we are taking from branch to data center. We need to ensure that the traffic is completely encrypted. So we ensure that no data goes in plain text. It is all completely encrypted using the latest encryption levels. And also we ensure that there can be multiple entities. For example, if I take a bank, they can be, earlier we mentioned, bank can be the retail banking. Also the same premises, they may be having the life insurance, maybe the same premises, they may be having their brokerage arm. So multiple entities can be using the same wide area network. So what we use, we have something called end-to-end segmentation. That means the bank data goes in the bank path, the brokerage or the security data goes in that path, and maybe life insurance goes into that path. So we not only ensure that traffic is encrypted, we also ensure that it is end-to-end segmented based on which entity or which user or which device the traffic is actually traversing the wide area network. And finally, the part which comes is where the applications are hosted. So if the applications are hosted in the data center, already data center will have enough security equipments for protecting it. But what about if the applications are hosted in a cloud solution provider, or it is a SaaS application? That is where SD-WAN should also provide what we call as cloud security solutions, right? So what we do in Aruba is we integrate with the leaders in that space, like Zscaler or Netscope or Checkpoint, or there are many security leaders who provide cloud security. That means when you are connecting from your branch to a cloud data center, or you are connecting to a Microsoft Office 365, or you are connecting to a voice over IP provider like Ring Central, wherever you are connecting from your branch, that traffic also is monitored and secured at both the sides bidirectionally. So that way we can say security is device level, LAN level, wide area network level, and cloud level. So that is how we are ensuring that we get much better security and addressed at all levels.
Okay, I think Shankarsan, you also said at the beginning, I think it's more secure, is it, than the traditional WAN?
More than more secure, it is more easy to set up a secure thing. Again, unfortunately, Mahesh is telling you in technical terms, and therefore he is going into the details of the individual pieces being secured. But that piece can be, if you have a smart enough a smart enough traditional engineer, you can do the same thing. It's just that it's going to be a lot harder to find it and a lot more work. Comma, full stop, this, that. What happens with SD-WAN is a virtualization concept, right? So let's say my branch terminal is going to connect to my core banking. Now I can quite literally draw a line saying branch terminal, line goes to core banking. Now all traffic, the SD-WAN under the overlay will ensure that all traffic from that terminal only goes to core banking and to nothing else. There is no other route to anything else. So then all this other security doesn't matter. There's no point trying to say that, let's say, my CRM next database has to be restricted, because there's no route there. There's no way to go. The terminal thinks that the only application in the entire network is the core banking and nothing else. It's a bit like on cloud. When I set up a server and you set up a server, I can't see your server, you can't see my server. So there's no firewall rule to write saying don't send traffic from my server to yours, because we can't see each other. It's a lot more secure than a firewall rule, because a firewall rule can make a mistake. But if I can't see it, there's nothing to make a mistake about. That is really what SD-WAN provides. Now, that is, of course, underlying it is all the technology that Mahesh described to you. It is a lot of fancy tricks. But you don't have to manage any of that. And it is verifiable. The software itself is verifiable, auditable, certifiable, and so on. Obviously, if you take a brand new provider, he may not have all the certificates. But if you take any established provider, he can guarantee you that this is indeed how it works. And that is what, by eventually, as the end user, my life becomes a lot simple. I literally draw a line between applications and then don't worry about all the other rules. Conversely, that makes my CISO's life a lot harder in the transition because he has to undo a lot of policies.
Okay.
So in the cloud also it happened. No, when you say two servers set up in two different environments in the cloud and they can't see each other, how do you satisfy the current CISO policies of firewall rules? Because there is no firewall. So then we had to, write a policy that accommodated that, saying there is no need for a firewall. Otherwise, for a while, originally when we started cloud provider, we used to actually put an extra firewall with a hop just to satisfy an existing policy. I remember when companies went to data center, we had similar problems. Things were written for on-premise. They were not written for data centers. So I went to, once we were doing a tour of controller's data center. And he's showing us around saying biometric, camera-based recognition, fingerprint recognition, this, that, and the other. And then there's a Yale lock. A small, chota, standard Godrej wala lock. Why? Because the bank that moved, their policy says that the cage must be locked with a lock. So, actually, our biggest challenges in those things. We had similar challenges moving to the cloud. We have similar challenges moving to SD-WAN.
So changing these policies are difficult, huh?
The policies are meant for a physical world. To do it in SD-WAN adds enormous complexity. SD-WAN says, but you kyun karna hai? And then kyun karna kya hai? Likha to hai. Karna hi hai. So that is one big, and this is something we found out the hard way, that, we need to understand how not to do what we used to do. Because what we used to do was a necessity, not a feature.
Got it. Okay.
And then really, I mean, I've used SD-WAN in particular pockets. Like you said, we couldn't do the whole network, but we did Gift City and all that. And actually, if you do your SD-WAN implementation properly, your network security document is one page.
Really?
Yeah, one of the areas we have seen, one of the banking customers for us, what they have done, they have not gone with the use case can be different. So one of the use cases which we have been discussing is the wide area network part of it, like branch connectivity to data center. But what we have seen is one of the benefits which customers can get is just the data center to DR connectivity, right? That is I would say that is a separate network anyway. They have dedicated high bandwidth links between data center and disaster recovery sites, maybe DC, DR, and sometimes near DR. So it's a three-way connectivity. So rather than migrating, anyway, migration of branches can be second phase, but first phase can be just migrating the traditional network part, which is between DC, DR, and near DR. And we have seen some of phenomenal gains that particular customer achieved. Their plan was to upgrade their bandwidth. They didn't have to upgrade the bandwidth after they deployed this. They could really see benefits of their Oracle replication times or their storage replication times between the DC DR and near DR.
Okay.
So that is another use case. Sometimes, many times when we talk about SD-WAN, we only think about the branch and data center connectivity. But we have seen that this can also bring benefits in the other part of the enterprise network.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great discussion on a very technical subject, but nonetheless, I think very interestingly put. So we are past time, 4 minutes past 5 o'clock, I think.
Yeah.
And some good questions came in. So obviously enormous advantages in moving to an SD-WAN, but as Shankar-san points out, there are plenty of challenges for existing players to make the transition. There are skill issues, but I'm sure Navdeep and Shekhar have solutions for many of those things. So thanks a lot, Shankar-san, Shekhar, Navdeep, Mahesh. Really nice having you on our platform. Hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.